Hello there, welcome back to the CPX podcast. I'm Cassiano Costa, I'm here at Costa Performance in Boca Raton. Today, episode number 3, super nice subject, a little bit more practical if you will. We're gonna talk about, strength, power, and conditioning, endurance, how to balance all of that on the training. Obviously, this is our bread and butter here, like we do every day on our facility. But obviously, it's different depending on the availability of time you have with the players, how much of each category you can work, what you should work first. So many questions that subject brings to us. See if we can address all of them. Please send your comments, send your questions. Take a look on our media through the YouTube, through Instagram. Participate with us here. Gotta start by saying thank you to my colleague Claudio Cotter, who does all the preparation here, all that you see. Even my makeup that you can see works quite well. He's the one providing it. Now, on a series like a note, right? What is the best category for development in an athlete? Well, the answer will vary, right? First, you kind of depend on the sport, on the phase of development of the athlete, on the phase of the training of the athlete. And for me, it's tough to assume, okay, a certain specific characteristic or a certain specific quality that should predominate over the other ones, right? Because I'll give an example, let's say in soccer, right? It's important that the athlete's fast. Well, 100%, right? It's important that the athlete is strong, you bet. It's important that the athlete has a good endurance. Wow, it's a long match, right? Like he better endure quite properly. But so what's the formula? What's the capacity that should be worked? I do believe a great balance on that, right? Like athletes should be mobile, athletes should be flexible, athletes should be pliable, strong, powerful, having great endurance. So I don't think there is one capacity. Certain sports maybe, right? You can have a bit more dominance. Thinking here, perhaps like gymnastics, strength and flexibility will take over endurance, but not many sports, especially what they are called field or court sports, I think is a great balance and combination. What we call the overall athlete is the one that should take some benefit of his or her performance. Today I'll try to talk too on how to organize the training, right? The training regimen, the training program in order to develop all these categories. So, how to train strength, how to train power, how to train endurance, all combined without overloading too much the athlete. Because at the end of the day, we not only want the athlete performing a bit more, but we also want the athlete, healthy and being able to play. All right, so quick few definitions here. Strength and physics would be the capacity of battle with a resistance, being capable to win the battle, lifting objects, pushing objects, accelerating objects, stuff like that. I think in sport is a little different than kind of bodybuilding. Bodybuilding, you want someone that will lift certain type of movements to develop certain type of muscles. Always the battle is against a certain resistance, right? Whereas in sport is more associated to acceleration, is more associated to pushing, is more associated to throwing, kicking events that you need to provide that level of strength also in a very short amount of time, which characterizes power. You guys can hear our colleague Francis here studying sports right next to us. He'll be joining us very soon in one of these podcasts, talking about his experience, European level, and the different aspects of the training programs across countries or continents, if you will. We're back to the strength part. So power will be, if you go on physics, force times velocity, capacity of resist against some object, body or load. Do that with the maximum velocity or speed possible. So all these sports events rely at the end of the day in power, right? Like if you think of indoor handball, the throwing, that's a powerful or power activity. Volleyball, the spike, powerful activity. Soccer, the kicking. Tennis, the strokes, and so on, right? Like you're generating movement throughout the combination of being able to create force and transfer that force in the least amount of time or maximum amount of speed. In the racket sports, let's go tennis, right? Like tennis matches, they start with the serve. Serve is probably the most powerful activity on tennis sport, right? Ball comes overhead, needs tremendous acceleration to cross the net, reach the other court, or the other side of the court, trying to generate either speed or effect, spin that deceives the return. That's, if you will, you need several amounts of strength, great level of power. Then when you think on the match itself, all the actions, all the changing direction or the length of the matches, you also need quite a amount of endurance, right? Now, is the tennis endurance the same endurance of pickleball? Is a pickleball endurance the same level of paddle? Definitely not. Definitely not. So the events are different in so many characteristics, either the type of displacement, the length of displacement, the speed of displacement, the length of points, the length of games, sets, and so on. I work quite close to squash players, tennis players, and if you see, both are extremely fit people, both are strong, both are powerful, but the application of their sports are completely different, right? Even being two racket sports. And then when you compare that with sports that are not considered racket sports, let's say basketball, the up and down in basketball, the amount of jumps, amount of landing, when you transfer these, for example, to compare to a padel player, it's absolutely different. So now, in both sports, you still work in power, you still work in strength, you still work endurance, conditioning, but you gotta respect the physiological demands, more importantly, the mechanical demands. When you do the program, you have to understand one very important thing: training age, okay? Training age differs from biological and or maturational age. You can have a 14-year-old with more training age than a 20-year-old. Give you some examples here that we see every day here on the gym. We got people that are come here 16-year-old with an experience of 7 years of strength and conditioning. So this kid has some movement patterns already set. This kid has an experience with certain peculiarities of the weight room or the track or the speed technique that someone with 20 years old that are doing his or her second year of strength and conditioning would not have. So you gotta respect that. Second, type of sport. As we just briefly described before, even among the racket sports, the program should be different, okay? Third, the moment of the blocks. Because obviously is like the golden time for us when we get those off seasons and pre-seasons that we have several weeks to make things happen. That's the fantastic time for us. But we will have these guys coming for training blocks. They will compete, especially in tennis that I have the data more accurate. They will compete 75% of the time and they will train 25% of the time. On that 25% of the time, they will accommodate the technical training, they will accommodate the strength and conditioning, they will accommodate the physical therapy, rehab, regen, and they will accommodate, in some cases, their mental coaching part. So the amount of time available is not big. And most of the times in off-season, we do have some weeks that the intensity on court are not so high, so it kind of can require a bit more of the athlete. Whereas on those training blocks, sometimes they're short. It's a 10-day block, it's a 12-day block, and you do have to accommodate everything on top of the athlete being massacred on the court. The fun part is the athlete always come to you, hey, have 8 days, and you need the magic to change A, B, C, D, E, and F things that I noticed on the last tournament that I wasn't able to accomplish. Not an easy task, requires a lot of flexibility from or adaptation from our end, requires a good understanding of the sport and the practices and routines, require even patience, right? Because you gotta control the expectation and frustration from everyone. So that's definitely not the easiest part. Last but not least, require a lot of science, right? Because the chance of you overdoing it or underdoing it is massive. That's why it's very important when you look for someone on your team for that strength and conditioning piece. It needs to be someone that really invested his time and years on studying, understanding, and even studying the sport itself. It's easy to just throw, got a medicine ball, go on court, do some movements that represent what tennis is or whatever racket sport is, and put you to do some 400s and 800s on the track and field, and then a couple days on the gym. It looks like great, it's fun, but not necessarily it's fundamented on what you really need. I once listened a sentence that it followed me throughout the years, that fantasy is what people want, reality is what people need, and reality sometimes is quite hard, right? So sometimes not necessarily the most engaging training is the training that is the proper training for the athlete. Letting the philosophy alone and getting back more on the science of the strength and conditioning, I think what we see is, again, let's go back. Normally, some of the racket sports, like tennis, you got the months of November, December to do our off-season. Squash is more similar to college season, so we got kind of the summer to do it. So most of the time we have a little bigger length of off-season, which obviously gives us a bit more time for being creative and to impact the program. But also, when you train for 12 weeks in a row or wherever it is, it can be massive, you can be boring, you can burn players out. Sometimes even it's suggested that you take a few days or a week, wherever, on that block off to just, refresh and get back strong. So in that time is when we can manipulate the categories and the capacities, in the best way possible, because you have time available, you have like moments to accommodate that the load on the athlete is not so big. So obviously, when you think of a regular machine, you create foundation for the machine, then you use that machine at top of that capacity, and you expect that the machine lasts long. So when you think of the body as a machine, so the foundation would be creating a solid amount of strength, and then to use the machine in its most efficient way, I think would be the description for power, and then expecting that the machine can last a decent amount of time. That will be our endurance conditioning. So I would always do a good mix of these three categories together, but perhaps on the beginning of the off-season, a little bit more attention on the strength, develop with conditioning, and more towards the end, even because of the characteristic of the load, apply more attention on the power and the power endurance that is so important for the player during his or her competition time. Now, one thing that happens is, because of too much competition, not much time for maintenance, and long blocks of competition too, obviously every time the player comes to a new block of training, you will see a bit more of a need in certain capacity. So that's fundamental, that the whole team talks, communicate, create like a nice link of trust and information. But the coaches, the physios, most of the competitions are abroad. Not every time the strength and conditioning make it for different reasons. It's important for the trainer, the coach, to understand what is the needed of the player. So then, throughout the block, you will address those things that can be, fundamental for his or her development. Well, we see, I'll give you a quick example on a tennis pro type of athlete. So normally they start their year in Australia, which has a big hit on the jet lag, but more and more they're getting quite used to it. Hard court, gotta take in consideration that tennis has a big difference on the type of surfaces. Then it depends what type of player you have to see where he's gonna play next. Some players decide to go South America and play clay. Some players decide to go to the Middle East and play hard. Some players take a little break and then get back on the first US swing to play hard court. So depending on that, you give more attention to one or two categories. Normally in hard courts, we like a lot of the explosive work, the power, because serve can be very beneficial. Ball will come a bit faster, movements will be more explosive, whereas for the clay players, you do work a lot on the strength and power, but also conditioning, because the points tend to be a little long or longer, and in order for injury prevention and good recovery between games, matches, it's important that they have the endurance on top of their game. After that, it's clay, April to mid-May, beginning of June. So again, we just mentioned regarding the conditioning and the strength. After that, they have the grass season, and grass is complicated because it's fast, but on the same hand, the ball doesn't bounce much, so the speed of the game is quite quick, and the stance and height of the player playing is a little lower, so you gotta be very careful with some lower back and shoulder issues and knee issues. So strength takes a fundamental part of it. Obviously the power, because the serve again plays a big role, and then the endurance Not that it's not important, because some matches can be long, especially on the Grand Slams. There is a best of 5 sets. We did have one episode among two tennis players, Isner and Mahmoud. The game took like over 50 hours, split in 2-3 days. Then it's hard court again. So again, you gotta understand the characteristics of the sport. Pickleball and padel, at least the surfaces are more similar in terms of the way they're gonna play. So it's kind of more constant, and so is the squash. It's kind of more constant what you're gonna offer for them throughout the year. Now, there are a bunch of like famous model of periodizations that came initially from the Russian school, and then more recently Europe and US. At the end of the day, it's a little bit of what the coach is familiar, what we understand that serves for the player. I try to get something that I standardize as chaos theory, which is based on physics, the chaos theory in physics, the multi-dimensions, etc. So I try to do a multi-approach on all capacities, getting a bit of development of each one of them, because at the end of the day I feel like the player will need that. Racket sports rely a lot on coordination, timing, and finesse. So for me, stress too much one category and let the other ones alone. I think you don't really go for what the sport really needs. Hope that is clear and helpful. Obviously, if you need more examples of training, do not hesitate to contact me. I'm happy to provide a more detailed type of conversation on that. Sometimes, because of the lack of time or the phase of training you are, it's great to combine exercises that stimulate the combination of these categories. So I'm gonna give you an example, okay? So when I work on strength, when I work on power, you can do a nice combination of what is called complex training. Some people even call French complex training, because of some of the Bill Comet and other training conditioning coaches that develop that modality. So where they do strength followed by power, and they do exercises that are kind of like review both aspects at the same time. Franz Bosch recently, Dutch Franz Bosch, is being like applying along with Alex Natera many exercises that they can cover both categories on the same hand. You want to work on strength, power, and put some endurance together. I think like circuits are one of the best way to see that. I'm going to give an example of a modality that I not necessarily I follow or believe, but it's an example what I'm talking about. The CrossFit class combines quite well power, strength, and conditioning on their exercises. If you see like take for example a burpee, which is like a jump, a squat, push-up, followed by a jump. So you see you have the strength component, you have the power component, and because of the volume and level of hardness of the exercise, you have your endurance component. Again, at the end of the day, the selection of exercising plans needs to respect the individuality of the player, mainly his or her demands and needs. The one thing that I believe, and I'll be biased here because my field of study was is biomechanics. When you go biomechanics, in a very poor description would be the understanding of the kinetics and kinematics of the body, or the way the body move and react to that movement, and the best way to create an efficient system that are gonna move in a non-expensive way, sustainable for the body. Okay, with those concepts, I think it's our role as biomechanicists, if there is such a term, to create on the program best way to perform strength in the most effective way, efficient way, and costful for the body. Because the whole idea is for the athlete to move efficiently, to move constantly, to move in long duration. Okay? And in racket sports, this is fundamental. So for me, the construction of the movements are very important when you have that knowledge. I'm gonna give you a couple examples here, right? I mentioned in the beginning that it's too easy to get a medicine ball and just put people to throw to looks like they're doing tennis. Well, the way the hip position itself, the way the ankle position itself, the way the shoulder position itself, the time of rotations, if you don't have an understanding of the mechanics of the sport you're working, you will almost do a disservice, because you're gonna create a technical pattern that is unrealistic. You're gonna create an unnecessary stress on the system. And we'll develop really things that are transferable for the court in the case. Similar with, I always hear the word, oh, let's work on footwork. And then I see some quickness exercises, agility exercises, coordination exercises, but again, with no real connection to the movement itself, or with no real connection with the joint kinetic chain that we expect when the athletes are doing movements, or not even to become more efficient. I'm gonna see someone change a direction. I know at certain points it's more important that the foot is flat on the floor in order to push from the foot borders, or certain movements will be more important that they are more on their balls of the foot so they can push their center of gravity forward. So those are the things that I believe someone with the proper understanding of biomechanics will help in order to develop the program. And that's why I'm a big believer that in order to work with sports, it's important that you have someone supporting you in terms of understanding the mechanics. And also, if you can practice, you don't need to be a player, you don't need to be a good player of the sport, but if you can practice a little bit, I think you understand those demands more clearly. Anyway, to summarize a bit, I think balancing on the training, strength, power, and endurance conditioning is what really gonna separate and become an athlete from an elite athlete. I think here at Costa Performance, that's the type of balance we try to find every day. Once again, is sometimes more entertaining to do things that look good and right, let's put them to run, they get tired, mental toughness, yes, let's throw medicine balls, which we also do it, but I think it's, for me, more important to balance properly the training to give the best for the athlete. That's all we do here. If you want to hear more about us, please make sure that you take a look on our Instagram, on our YouTube, and LinkedIn. I'm Cassiano Costa. I really appreciate the time you spent with me. I hope to see you on the next episode.